Hey guys, this is going to be the top 10 characters in Dragon Ball Legends November Edition. There's going to definitely be a second November edition because we're going to be jumping into Legends Festival in about a little less than 3 weeks. So the meta surely will shift during part 1 of Legends Fest. But Majin Vegeta is the newest character to have released, so we're going to be covering how he has influenced the top 10 list I'm going to share with you guys. Just to go into minor details here, like I typically do in the beginning of these videos, every character is going to be considered at 14 stars in their best possible situations, best teams, best equipment, etc. Number 2, don't forget that these top 10 rankings are entirely based on the current meta environment. Just because I have a character ranked above another character doesn't mean that they are better than them. It just means that they're going to be performing better and are more valuable in the current meta environment. And then number 3, obviously all these rankings are based on my own experience. I don't know, everybody has different experiences. I play the game in Japan, I play certain people, I have certain play style. So, you know, people who play the game in a different region with a different play style against different opponents, against different characters is going to have a different experience and formulate their own opinions based on their own experiences. But this is obviously based on my experience. So one other thing to mention as well, this list is based on standard, not proud mode. So I think you probably could change the list up a little bit if you were going to base it off of Legends ranked proud mode instead of just standard mode. So just keep that in mind. So we'll jump into number 10 and we'll move through the list here. Hopefully this isn't too long. All right, so we're going to start off with a bit of a weird ranking here. I'm actually going to put an 11th spot on this top 10 list. And the reason is just because I felt like there's 11 characters that definitely deserve to be on here. I didn't feel comfortable leaving off any of these 3 characters for this spot here. And then we are going to have 8 other characters above this. I just feel like there's merit for all 3 of these characters right now because I see all these guys fairly often, at least personally. Of course, Majin Buu saga with Evil Buu and Kid Buu has been a thing for a long time. I think with the release of Majin Vegeta, it gets a bit harder to justify a position for Kid Buu on Majin Buu saga. And the reasoning is just because Vegeta just crushes him. Majin Vegeta with the lock-in ultimate just destroys him. We are getting more characters that are able to nullify endurance with their main ability active, like Gotenks, like Evil Buu. Again, Majin Vegeta can just intentionally whiff his ultimate and shoot a Rising Rush after that to stop Kid Buu if he doesn't, you know, he can't kill with the ultimate just straight away. Kid Buu's still a really good character, and even defensively, Majin Vegeta with the gauge against Kid Buu. Because remember, Kid Buu specifically is drawing blast cards with his green card, which is the main reason how he's able to extend combos out. So I think just, you know, the release of Majin Vegeta has hurt Kid Buu more than helped him. Even though you can kind of run them together, I think what ends up happening more often than not is you're just replacing Kid Buu on Buu Saga with Majin Vegeta. And that's definitely an issue at this point, too, that we're seeing with Buu Saga in terms of just a more general look at the team, too, is there's just too many good characters on Buu Saga, right? We have Gotenks, we have Kid Buu, we have Evil Buu, we have Majin Vegeta, we have Fusing Super Vegeta. Like, there's so many good characters for Majin Buu Saga. You can't just simply run all of them at the same time. You have to pick and choose which ones you want to main on the team. So I don't know if Kid Buu really makes the cut for the best iteration of Majin Buu Saga anymore, and it's becoming a little bit tougher to justify his position in like the top 5 on this list. So I feel pretty comfortable with him sort of being in this bottom area of the top 10. Again, I don't really know what you want to call this because technically it's including like the 11th character on the list here, but I feel pretty okay with Kid Buu being in this area on the list. Evil Buu I think is still pretty good, hanging in there. He's kind of feels similar to Kid Buu in a way, but I think Evil Buu probably is able to provide a little bit more than Kid Buu. If I was going to order this the way that I have things on here, I think I would actually have Evil Buu at 9, Gohan at 10, and Kid Buu at 11, I think is what I would do here. Evil Buu for me, I think just seems to be a very consistent staple for Buu Saga still. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, he has the endurance nullification on main ability effect, which is really, really powerful against Majin Vegeta because Majin Vegeta can get killed through a Rising Rush. Like if you're Evil Buu and pop the main ability, you can rush Majin Vegeta and kill him because Majin Vegeta doesn't remove buffs when the enemy uses Rising Rushes. It's only blue cards and ultimates, right? So Majin Vegeta actually could die to Evil Buu technically. I think Majin Buu works very well with Evil Buu as well. The color synergy there with green and yellow is pretty good. And I mean, there's definitely cases where Majin Vegeta can like kill Evil Buu too with the lock-in. I mean, that's not really something I'm going to hold against Buu just because that's, you know, that's something that happens like almost every character in the game. It's just locked in by Majin Vegeta and just killed. But I think Evil Boo is still pretty solid. Has like the few counts lock in on entry. He has the support. He has the disrupt. He has the bulk. So a lot of what Evil Boo is doing, I think, is still valuable. But it's a little bit tougher to run him with Majin Vegeta floating around. But again, I think he pairs well with him. So I don't really want to knock him too much for that. I think there's less of a negative impact on Evil Boo as there has been for Kid Buu. And then for Gohan, so I didn't do a top 10 list when Gotenks dropped. But I think Hybrids is now like an actual viable team. You have Ultra Gohan, Ultimate Gohan, the purple one, and then Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks all on that Hybrids team, which I think is actually a real viable team. Gotenks is a character that's able to really augment Gohan's abilities to flourish on the team. Like you have Gotenks as sort of the center of the team because it's colored green, red, purple. So Gotenks is like completely covered in terms of coloring. And then Gohan, I guess... there's no yellow on the team, so I guess like if you find yourself up against the purple character, it can be a little bit strange. But with Majin Vegeta's floating around as often as they are right now, I think purples are a little bit less omnipresent, right? You don't just run into Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta every time you queue up. You don't just run into Ultimate Gohan every time you queue up. I think Ultimate Gohan is still probably more popular than Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is in terms of how often you see him right now, but it's not like every match guaranteed you're definitely going to run into Ultimate Gohan like it was a few weeks ago. But I think Ultra Gohan with the blast, with the armor break mechanic is still insane. AoE green card counters. He has the strike counter gauge, which is super good still. Obviously, you need to be super careful with him up against Majin Vegeta because Majin Vegeta, Ultra Gohan definitely doesn't have the greatest defenses. So Majin Vegeta touches him once and he's just like going to get disintegrated. So you really got to be careful there. But Gotenks, I think, can do a good job of supporting Gohan and not getting crushed by Majin Vegeta. But again, you just got to be a little bit cautious, which is fine with Gohan because that's typically the way you want to play with him regardless. You want to play cautious so that you don't... I guess, well, you can also make use of his green card AoE and then the counter gauge as well as the counter blue card if you have it. So I feel pretty okay with this setup here for the bottom of the list. Let's move on to number 8. Coming in at number 8 is Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. So obviously I think people are probably going to know why he is a bit lower on this list than he was in the prior list. I actually thought once we got Tree of Might Goku, he was going to be like the answer to Gogeta. And I think he actually was a very well-designed character for specifically countering this guy. It wasn't to the level where it completely rendered this guy worthless, but it also wasn't almost like a nothing burger, right? Tree of Might Goku released, and I think he did a good job of shutting this guy down without making him almost irrelevant. And so I thought they had this guy in like a great spot as the headlining ultra, big hype character. Well, I guess one of the big hype characters. The 6th anniversary lineup was insane. One of the big hype characters of the 6th anniversary. I would say post Tree of Might Goku and post Turles, he was probably trending in like the 3 to 5 range on most people's rankings, which I think is fair. In terms of where he was. And I think that's probably a good spot for the character, considering he only came out 4 months ago or something like that, close to 4 months ago. So I thought, he was in a good spot with Tree of Might Goku releasing, and now we have Majin Vegeta, who is a much bigger counter to this guy than I thought they would release, because they already had one counter to him. Now, there is one issue I actually found with using Majin Vegeta against this character, and it's kind of funny because it's... In a way, you could say he's too good of a counter. So typically the way that you use Majin Vegeta against this guy is you'll switch into Majin... Like, you start a combo in this Gogeta, you switch into Majin Vegeta, you land a strike or a blast, and then you main ability, grab the ult, lock him in, and kill him. Now, what actually happens... is you switch into Majin Vegeta, he inflicts 2 sub counts to the whole enemy team, so he can't switch. You need to free up a slot in your hand so you can actually main ability and draw the ultimate. But when you hit him when you hit this character with Majin Vegeta with a strike or a blast card, it usually does so much damage that it brings him below half HP, and you can't then chain in the ultimate to lock him in and kill him because his gauge is activated and he's type neutral. So that is kind of like a funny interaction that I found with Majin Vegeta versus character. It's kind of, I guess, I don't know if they were foreseeing this interaction specifically when they were designing Gogeta with like the half HP force triggers his full gauge, force triggers type neutrality. I don't think they were probably thinking that far ahead with this Majin Vegeta release and the interaction he has with Gogeta, but it is pretty funny how it worked out that actually is a sort of a problem here. But you guys know how good Majin Vegeta is versus this character, with Majin Vegeta being, I mean, I'm recording this video a little bit earlier than usual. I typically wait to do my God rank grind before I do these top 10 videos, but this season is 3.5 weeks, and by the time I do my God rank grind towards the end of the season, we're going to be heading into Legends Fest meta anyway, so I figured I might as well just do this a little bit earlier. But I think once you start fighting potentially higher starred Super Saiyan 4 Gogetas, this might not be as big of an issue with Majin Vegeta, but Majin Vegeta clearly is designed to destroy this character. And I think I'm pretty fine with him being at number 8 here. He's still, he's still hanging in there. It's crazy that we have like these two monster powerhouse anti-Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta characters in the game, and he's still number 8. But definitely not the one-shot ultimate demon that he was on release. He's still got some pretty good tools. The gauge is still crazy. Last man standing capabilities are still really good. His blue card restoring vanish. He's got the Dragon Ball destruction on ultimate. Very good character. It's just, at this point, the environment for him is not the greatest. So I think 8 is pretty good considering how good he is still. Let's move on to number 7 next. Number 7, we are going to have LF Omega Shenron. I think this guy's a little tough to judge right now because he's technically not directly affected by Majin Vegeta's lock-in ultimate tech, right? I mean, you're not really ever going to be like locking in Omega and getting rid of his indestructible with Majin Vegeta's main ability ultimate. You're not really going to be doing that, but what that does prevent Omega from doing is switching in against an opponent who is ultimating someone on your team, right? One of the good things about this character is he reduces his own sub count by 5 when someone on his team is getting ultimated by the opponent. Obviously, when you're locked in, you can't really make use of that. So this Majin Vegeta release kind of hampers Omega's ability as a, I guess, saving character. Like, he can't save allies on his teams from getting sniped. That's why it's called a snipe, right? Other than that, I don't really know if this Majin Vegeta release has some kind of like major drawback or downside versus Omega in particular. I think he's kind of just still a very good character, but I would say the biggest downside that, I guess you can affiliate with Omega Shenron is just surrounding his teams. Fusion Warrior, I think, is still a pretty good team, but it definitely got hurt. And then the same thing with GT, because he's kind of just tied to Gogeta, right? They're both on the same teams, GT plus Fusion Warrior. Powerful opponent and regen. I mean, you could run this guy on them, but I don't really know if those are like super competitive top tier teams right now. They could have put Majin Vegeta on powerful opponent. Could have been interesting, but I think Omega Shenron all in all is just still a very good character. He's a very solid, consistent character, but I think he gets hurt a little bit by Majin Vegeta. I guess one good thing we could say about him is he does have that AoE green card immunity, which now is more noticeable with a very top tier character in the meta having an AoE green with Majin Vegeta, right? The last few characters, Tree of Might Goku, Turles, Gotenks, a lot of those, like all those guys didn't have AoE greens, so that's kind of now also something we could briefly mention. But again, not a character that was super affected by Majin Vegeta. I still think he's a very consistent and competent release here, just like a good filler character for your teams. But yeah, he doesn't feel like, oh my god, I'm putting Omega on every single team like it used to be a few months ago, but still a very good character. I think I'm okay with him being at number 7. Let's move on to number 6 now. Alrighty, number 6 is going to be Fusing Super Vegito. I think there's a pretty distinct cutoff after this character. It's like in between Omega and this character, I feel like there's a pretty big gap right now. I don't think there's a big gap between like this character and Omega as individual characters, but in terms of the meta right now, I think there's a pretty big gap between at least how often I see these characters like used in PvP and just their overall power that I feel exists right now in the meta environment. So Fusing Super Vegito I have at number 6. I think this guy has gained a lot of value with the release of Gotenks and Majin Vegeta. Neither of those characters have buff removal on Rising Rush, which means that this character can just fuse really fast, get a Rising Rush, and that's, one character dead guaranteed, essentially. Majin Vegeta has buff removal, but it's only against ultimates and blue cards, so this character is kind of... You kind of always have to be aware of them, right? And I think against specifically the Majin Buu Saga team, this is almost kind of why I feel you really have to be running Evil Buu. It's because of this character. Right? I mean, you have so many good characters on Majin Buu Saga, like I mentioned earlier in this video. You have this character, you have Gotenks, you have Majin Vegeta, you have Ultimate Gohan, you have Evil Buu, you have Kid Buu. So, like, who do you run on Majin Buu Saga? I do feel like because of the existence of this character and because of how often I still run into this character, it's Evil Buu that I think you really need to run. It's kind of crazy to say. Like, Evil Boo just really feels like a staple on Boo Saga. But again, Evil Boo, it's hard to really say because Evil Boo can still get crushed by Majin Vegeta. Evil Boo can get crushed by characters like Gotenks. Tree of Might Goku can do a lot of damage and combo. Even like Tree of Might Goku doesn't even particularly really care about Evil Boo's like ridiculous disrupt. Well, like the only character on this list doesn't really care about that. Besides Gotenks too, but this character, I think, definitely is in a very good spot right now. I don't really know if there's anything else that needs to be said here. I guess the one downside is Majin Vegeta gets a very easy kill on them. Right? I mean, Majin Vegeta touches this character once, and they're like, what is the difference between this character and Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta in terms of them getting countered by Majin Vegeta? Is there really a difference there? I don't think there is. In fact, I would actually say that there might be even a better argument that this character dies easier to Majin Vegeta than Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, because at least with Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, you can get his gauge built up, and at that point, you know you're safe. But with this character in base, or even as Super Vegeta, I feel like they're just going to be very quick to die to Majin Vegeta if they get touched by him. But I think the same thing is existing. I think the same thing exists on the flip side too. If this character has a very early fusion, which if you're not fighting the movie core of Tree of Might Goku plus Turles, it is very easy for this character to get a super fast Rising Rush. And even if you are fighting that team, this character has a lot of Dragon Ball destruction immunity. So, but particular against the Boo Saga team, which is where that Rising Rush is going to be even more deadly because Turles doesn't exist. But this character, you know, they were released in hopes of helping to flesh out the Majin Buu Saga team, and I think actually one of their best aspects is how well they function against the Buu Saga team, because you just anti-endurance guaranteed hit Rising Rush Majin Vegeta or Gotenks, and you're looking pretty good at that point. So I do think this character is in a very good spot. I mean, these guys came out at the end of May. We're now in November. So ultimately, just a very phenomenal character. I feel very confident about them being number 6 on here. Let's move on to the top 5. Number 5 is going to be Purple Ultimate Gohan. I think before we start talking about details of this guy, I think you probably could swap this guy with number 4 on the list. I was considering having this be a shared spot, number 5 and number 4 together, but I do think I would give the edge to the character we're going to talk about at number 4 after this. But Ultimate Gohan, number 5, I don't really need to go into excruciating detail about this character. Everyone knows how this guy works. I think one of the biggest things I might see from people, I wouldn't be surprised if some people had this guy a little lower on the list just because of Majin Vegeta's impact. The one thing I'll say about that is I don't really know if Majin Vegeta has like some extermination level like counter to this Gohan. This Gohan, remember, he's competent by himself. I mean, you talk about like Majin Vegeta's gauge being an issue for this character. Remember, when this guy gets blue carded, when he's on the battlefield, let me see if I can remember everything correctly. He's healing, I think he's healing 30% health. He's going type neutral. He's lowering enemy special move power by 50%. Like, there's a lot going on with this character when he's getting blue carded by a yellow character. And I think there's no really huge worries about that with this guy. Even against the lock-in, I mean, he's got the buff removal, he's got the heal, he's got the power down, he's obviously got the endurance. So, you know, I don't think there's some major, like, you know, red alarm going off, red alert, you know, alarm bells ringing that this guy's going to get just trounced by Majin Vegeta. Obviously, yellow beats purple, but for a purple character, I think this guy is much more competent at dealing with a powerful yellow like Majin Vegeta than Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is. This guy works very well with Gotenks. This guy works very well on the Buu Saga team. I think it's very tough to think of a, you know, like top of the line competitive Buu Saga team without including this guy. I think this guy plus, you know, it's tough. I still don't know, and I haven't decided on what I think the best build of Buu Saga is. I am actually leaning towards not running Evil Boo, just because you have to sack off running Gotenks or this guy, and you're obviously running Majin Vegeta. But I don't know. But I think this guy works exceptionally well with Gotenks, and I think that partnership is one of the best in the game. This guy plus Gotenks is probably just as good as Turles plus Tree of Might Goku. Honestly, they're about neck and neck, I would say. But yeah, this guy is very good. I don't think he has as many issues against Majin Vegeta as you would expect, because I don't know if they were designing him with that in mind, but we can even just show this on the screen here. I think is it in his first unique ability? No, it's in the second one. Right here. The following effects occur when an enemy activates a special move, Ultimate Arts, Awakened Arts, or Rising Rush. Restores health by 30%, goes type neutral for 10 counts. Shortens ally sub count by 3, minus 50% to special move, Ultimate, and Awakened Arts power for 3 counts, and cancels enemies buff effect. So, talk about a character that actually has the tools to deal with a super powerful yellow with like lock-in blue cards. This guy is it. So, I feel pretty good without this guy being number 5. Let's move on to number 4 next. Number 4 is going to be LF Tree of Might Goku. Still a very, very good character. I think, what's the best way to word this? Like, this guy was released as the first layer of a counter to Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. And I don't know, like, Majin Vegeta's release hurting Gogeta so much, I think also indirectly hurts this character a little bit because you're not presented with as many Super Saiyan 4 Gogetas as we were 2 weeks ago, right? This guy is obviously still very competent even without facing Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. I think one of the best things about this character is his ability to not care as much about Disrupt. He has the ridiculously strong green cards. He has the buff removal when he's not even on the battlefield. I think this character is pretty competent when it comes to not getting sniped by Majin Vegeta as well. Remember, when Majin Vegeta goes for the snipe on this character, this guy's going to remove his buff effects, and he's going to heal by 30%, which is a lot. Typically, when you're building teams for this character and you're building equipment options for this guy, a lot of times you'll be using equipment that increase health restoration too. So it's not just 30%, it's 30% plus whatever the bonus to health restoration you have for the equipment. So it's very tough for Majin Vegeta to really come in and just snipe this guy unless you're already like super low levels of HP. One thing I think that could be an issue with this character is typically the way that I've used him is I would intentionally get him below half HP because I like to have him be at the level where like he's going to fill up his gauge, heal, and then be able to continue comboing and filling up his own gauge as well. Is just going to cycle through all those different effects, the support, the healing, the sub count reduction. But now when you're fighting against somebody that's using Majin Vegeta, it's super risky to have this guy just floating around at low levels of HP because then you can just get sniped. So that I think hurts him a little bit. I think one thing that's really strong about this character in terms of specifically matching up against Majin Vegeta is, remember, this guy has an anti-lock-in mechanic, which is really the first time we've seen something like that. This is, I think, more so supposed to be, or it was intended to be against Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta's gauge activating and his AoE green card. But when this guy activates Majin Vegeta's lock-in off of his gauge being activated, Majin Vegeta loses 100 ki. So he can't actually follow up on the lock-in, you know, whatever, like the blue card follow-up off of that. So that is a point of positivity for this Goku in terms of that matchup as well. So I think this guy is continuing to be pretty good. Very numerous ways to get Vanish restored as well. The ultimate he can get multiple times, he would defeated ally, and of course he's going to pair up very well with Ultra Turles, who's still very, very powerful. So I think this guy is looking pretty good. And honestly, we could also talk about the fact that I think one of the better setups for Majin Vegeta, and I think a lot of people have started to catch on to this, is you simply just throw Majin Vegeta on leader slot next to this character plus Turles, and that is a very hard team to take down. Gotenks could be the one sort of thorn in your side if you're running that version of the movies, but I think that team overall is very, 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 very good. So, Tree of Might Goku is going to come in at number 4. Let's move on to number 3. Okay, so I'm going to have a shared spot here at number 2 and number 3. This is going to be shared between LF Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks and Ultra Turles. I guess we'll start with Gotenks first, because I actually have not spoken about Gotenks at all, because I didn't do a top 10 since his release. Gotenks is a very, very good character, and from what I've seen, again, I'm not super entrenched in the community of this game on social media. I'm not like on social media all day talking with other people about how they feel about certain characters, but from the little bit that I've seen from what people are talking about with Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, I do think he is probably one of the more underrated characters in the game right now. I think people don't understand how strong this is. I'm going to pull this up because it's very, very important right now. Where is it? 100 counts. These two effects right here. No, actually, no, it's this one. Nullifies attribute downgrades on normal conditions for the first 100 timer counts. That means you are immune to power down. You are immune to arts cost increase debuffs. All those sorts of annoying effects that hamper your ability to continue comboing and make you take more damage from Turles and stuff like that. This guy does not care about any of those things for 100 counts. He's got permanent double card draw speed. He's got the ridiculous green card generation, which works, of course, very well with characters like Ultimate Gohan and even Ultra Gohan. And even all the Majin Buu, like even with Majin Vegeta, right? Majin Vegeta's AoE green card, you could just use Gotenks to generate green cards for Majin Vegeta and just AoE green card everyone down. This guy is pretty good defensively. I don't think he's exceptional. He has 70% roost damage received plus the 10%, against certain damage types, which seems to be the standard that we're getting now. But he's not a pushover when it comes to defense if you build him correctly. And combo potential, he's supporting as well. Don't forget that. He's supporting in the form of sustained damage cut penetration, which if you actually look at Ultra Majin Vegeta's kit, that is one of the things that he actually doesn't have access to by himself, is sustained damage cut penetration, just baseline. So that is something he can gain from being right next to Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. When Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks Endurance is activated, he gives a full, I believe it's 20 or 30% damage inflicted to the whole team, but it is still, again, more support. And overall, I just think this character is doing pretty much everything. The only thing he doesn't have, which I think might have been a little bit too good if they gave him it, was blast armor on strikes. It probably wouldn't have been too good, but I think it would have been a little overkill if they went that far with this character because of just what he's doing already. The main ability giving him type neutrality, the blue card giving him type neutrality, the Dragon Ball Destruction, chance to faint. I mean, I can go down the list of all the things this guy is doing, but he is very, very good in all aspects. This is like the definition of an all-around great character. So the ability for him to fit on Hybrid Saiyans, Buu Saga, even Fusion Warriors, I would say Fusion Warriors, it's hard to really judge now with Majin Vegeta being out because the Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta powerhouse character that you would run as like your main core on the team is now a little bit worse off. So I'm gonna not talk about Fusion Warriors as much with this character, but Buu Saga, Hybrids, I think he works very well on those teams. And I don't think, for people who are not talking super highly about this character, I just don't think either they've used him that often or they've ran into him that often because he's very annoying. You're fighting somebody who knows what they're doing with this character. So I think this guy is really well designed. He's not like super annoying unless, of course, you get fainted. That's like the only thing, but I think he's really, really good. Turles, don't really need to spend too much time on this guy. He is like the only, besides like Garlic Jr., I guess, he's like the only impenetrable character that exists in the game right now. Even Garlic Jr., Majin Vegeta exists, I think, could probably do some unspeakable things to Garlic Jr. But remember, Garlic Jr. even has like type neutrality defensively for the first 60 counts when he transforms. But Turles is on the same level defensively as Garlic Jr. is. The healing is ridiculous. The fact that he has the comeback, which means it can't be nullified by Vegeto's Rising Rush. I think his green card generation is pretty underrated, I would say, too, just because of the fact that you get double card draw speed off it, you get ki off of it. And remember, he's getting ki every time he activates the unique gauge, which you're going to be doing pretty much every time you swap in with him during a combo regardless. I mean, the comeback itself is pretty devastating, especially, like, you get into a position where you have the enemy down to 2 characters. I would say 75% of the time someone's dead if they proc the comeback. Unless they have their own comeback, I guess, right? Or I guess Majin Vegeta's gauge can serve decently well as a deterrence to Turles' comeback. That's something I used to say about Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Like, when Turles first dropped, I was like, oh, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta's gauge actually serves well as a way to defend yourself against this comeback. And now I think we can sort of say the same thing about Majin Vegeta's gauge, right? Because even if Majin Vegeta gets caught by Turles after his comeback activates, Turles can't really just go for the main ability ultimate because Majin Vegeta will not die to it because he's going to remove buff effects if he uses an ultimate against him. But Turles, I think, as a staple character in terms of being able to, remember, he's supporting the team after his comeback goes off, supporting defensive character. He doesn't do the greatest damage. After his comeback, his damage is very significantly buffed, and it's very noticeable. His ultimate hits very hard. He can get his Vanish back with his main ability. I think he's a really good character to run alongside Majin Vegeta 2 on the team I talked about earlier with Trio Goku, so you run a yellow, yellow, blue setup there. But overall, really good character. I don't really know how I can separate him from Gotenks, though, just because they're so different. And I think even comparing them in the first place is very tough to do. Like, Gotenks is an all-around character, and I would say Turles is more of a defensive utility character. Utility, I guess, kind of, right? You get key recovery, the support, the comeback. But yeah, I think they're kind of both in the same power level for me right now when it comes to the meta right now. So 2 and 3 is a shared spot between Turles and Gotenks. Let's move on to number 1. Okay, so number 1 is going to be Ultra Majin Vegeta. I would highly doubt that many people are surprised by this pick at number 1. He's kind of dictating the rules of the meta right now. This guy, I don't really know, has too many characters he really needs to be super afraid of. I think his biggest threat is probably Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, but I honestly don't run into that many Gotenks. I think it's more so just the fact that Gotenks isn't that popular of a character. So even though this banner was insane and he was insane himself, I don't think many people really summoned for him. The other big threat against this character is actually fusing Super Vegito, I think. I think fusing Super Vegito's ability to just snipe this character out with a rush is really scary for him. But, I mean, at least you can switch to someone else and sack them off if you get rushed by Vegito, right? AoE green card, type neutral, vanish back, counter gauge against blast, which you can combo off of a lock-in. He comes in, he locks in. He main ability ults, he locks in. He has the heal at half HP. He's deleting your enemy's blast cards. I mean, this character does literally everything. He has the 70% reduced damage received plus the 10% extra reduced damage received versus certain damage types. What else? I don't know. What else do you want me to say about this character? He's really, really good. He's really good. He definitely seems a little bit unfair at times. Kind of reminds me of when Ultra Gogeta Blue dropped originally, and you just simply couldn't do anything against the gauge. I mean, it kind of feels similar. I think the most... I don't even know what the word is. I could call it annoying, I guess, but I think one of the more underrated parts of this character, well, not really underrated, I think once people have gotten to use him, but when I was initially looking at this character's kit, one thing that I didn't really talk about, I think, that is much better than I was thinking. I mean, to be fair, we didn't really know how this would work in game until we saw it in game, but let me see. Where is it? This. Rapidly charges on unique gauge. I think the rate at which he fills up his unique gauge in combination with how powerful the unique gauge is insane. He fills up his unique gauge, what is it, 8 counts or something to fill up the unique gauge? in 8 counts, you are basically untouchable from the beginning of when he switches in. That is insane, right? Even with Ultra Blue Gogeta, at least you would know when his gauge was going to fill up. You had to hit him a few times to get it filled up. This guy, I mean, he just has it, and it's a lock-in guaranteed blue card that he lands against you. So, to me, that's crazy. On top of the fact that he's specifically destroying your strike cards and blue cards when you disrupt him at half health, right? On top of the fact that he's deleting buff effects when you go for an ultimate. This guy is just ridiculous. I don't know. Are they planning on releasing some monster red character like immediately for Legends Festival? I'm thinking maybe the Ultra is going to be red, like the December Part 3 Ultra for Legends Fest. Like, they're just going to be red, and it's going to be tough to run this guy at that point. Like, I don't know. I don't really know. This guy is very scary. Whenever you have a character that has no switching tied to an ultimate like this, I mean, this is like, I don't know who was playing back then, but if you guys remember way back, this is actually 6 years ago, Blue Ribrianne would main ability and lock the opponent in, and she would also draw an ultimate. This actually reminds me of Blue Ribrianne back when she dropped 6 years ago. She was like, I thought she was the best unit in the game when she dropped, but at minimum, she was top 2 next to like Purple Broly. Lock-in plus ultimate is insane. I mean, that's literally game winning by itself. You press the main ability and you win the game with this character. I mean, it's just the way it is. And on top of that, it's the fact that you're comboing it in from another lock-in, right? When this guy enters the battlefield, he increases sub counts by 2 to everyone. So you get a free hit, and then you get the lock-in ultimate. Just a ridiculous character that I don't really think has too many counters right now. I mean, one counter that I guess I could talk about that I don't really see as often anymore is Fusion Zamasu. Zenkai Fusion Zamasu could be annoying for this character for sure. He is immune to card destruction, so even if you have a full hand of strikes against this character, he's not going to be destroying his strike cards. He has the endurance nullification on main ability, so he can pop that in Rising Rush. He's a really good counter to this guy, but I don't know. He's kind of niche at this point. He's not as strong as a lot of the other characters that are running around, so it could be hard to run him, but I think I do think he actually could be like a wild card option for someone who's trying to counter this character. But overall, I don't really have any issues with the guy being at number 1. I think most people would agree with this. But just to recap the list, we have like a three-way tie spot at the bottom here, like 9, 10, and 11-ish. Kid Buu, Evil Buu, and Ultra Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. Number 8, we have Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Number 7, we have Omega Shenron. Number 6, we have Fusing Super Vegito. Number 5, we have Purple Ultimate Gohan. Number 4, we have Tree of Might Goku. Number 2 and number 3 is a shared spot between Ultra Turles and Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. And then number 1 is Ultra Majin Vegeta. Let me know down below what you think. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you disagree with any part of the list, let me know. And I will see you in the next one.